There was a time, not long ago, when we looked out at the natural world around us, and the mystery and wonder we felt became the heart of our folklore. We created a body of parables filled with magic and myth and universal truth. High in the crown of the mountains, the gods danced to the song the wind sang. The owl, sister to the moon, was wise. The bear was immortal, gifted in the art of healing. Beneath the rivers, dragons slept. Yet the beaver held dominion over the waters. The stones were alive, and the eagle a servant to the sun. And there were other things that moved beyond our sight and understanding. Strange and beautiful and dread. Earth, mountain, moon, sun, thunder. What a rich tapestry, what a dramatic companion nature was when we were younger and less wise. But time went by, and the rational mind began to strip away myth and magic piece by piece. We began to view nature dispassionately through the lens of science. No longer did unicorns graze in the forest, nor dragons sleep in the rivers. We and nature grew apart. We lost that sense of wonder that had enlivened our vision of the world around us and our vision of ourselves. And so we wonder, is there still a place so far removed from our towns and cities that one might yet feel a sense of the primeval? A forest or a mountain or a river that has survived the demise of our myths? Or has the first great age of mankind on earth ended, and a second, devoid of magic and wonder and fable, begun? Before Pliny the Elder died in Pompeii, the day Mount Vesuvius erupted, he wrote a 37-volume natural history. In it, he described a beast called the unicorn, a horse-like creature possessing a single horn with a spiral twist. The unicorn's most distinctive behavioral characteristic is its need to range freely far from the human community. If the unicorn exists as more than a myth, it would be in lands like these, the lonely green reaches of northeastern Montana. In the near distance, wildflowers fill a living palette with blues and golds, colors which often fleck the iris of the eye. Beyond, in the far distance, the sacred mountains of vanished peoples rise. And it was here that our search for the legendary beast began. Although the place seemed as wide and free as an untroubled mind, the elusive creatures we followed had apparently passed on westward, leaving the endless prairie to the dancers. Each year, as if summoned by a punctual fiddler in their jeans, the sage and sharp-tailed grouse returned to the dancing grounds to perform their annual fandango. Year after year, they returned to the same spot for their courtship ritual. The sharp-tail's dance is stylized and mechanical, like a wind-up toy in a comic operetta. Although the hens seem enormously indifferent, they will choose a mate, breed, then nest. And the dance goes on. Nearby, the pronghorn antelope, a soft, coiled spring of grace and innocence, nurses at the breast of the grassland. A coyote listens for dinner, its ears so sharp it can hear a mouse, or a unicorn for that matter, from more than 100 feet away. How familiar these wild creatures all seem. We know of them and their behavior from the precise investigations of science. But really, we knew them all along, from the stories of the Blackfoot, the Cree, and the Sioux, from the tales Aesop told, from the creation and flood myths of all the planet's peoples. Science and fable are not such uneasy neighbors, after all. As we searched for the unicorn, we passed a host of horses running free, and we wondered at the need all things feel to return to the wild. It's as if our lives too often are journeys away from what we really are, and we long to return to the mountain, the forest, and the river, to the tortured contours of Montana's Missouri Breaks. So remote are these lonely canyons that Gros-Ventre pilgrims came here on their vision quests. They claimed the land was filled with great serpents and enormous beasts. Ideal unicorn habitat. But it seemed the unicorn had moved on into the wild country beyond the Missouri Breaks. There is a place on the Missouri River so undisciplined and free that unicorns would surely be hiding in the cottonwoods. It is the last remaining unaltered stretch of this great river. A place so primeval that the laws of nature are the only laws, and to be here is like living the experience of the first traveler to pass this way. Over the ages, wind and rain have carved stories in the stone of castles and columns and battlements, a white city for the eye of the mind. Before the gates of the mountain, the Sun River slides down the eastern front from a land of violent echoes and tranquil solitudes. What great storms there must have been beneath the earth to create these broken, folded faults so many million years ago. What bitter quarrels the forces of the underworld must have suffered to hurl stone walls so high. Yet, how vast the silence is here. No sound of cities nor machines can reach across the crystal distance. In the forest and by the secret streams of the Great Bear, the Scapegoat, and the Bob Marshall Wilderness, there is a sense of sanctuary. In the wilderness, one feels that he or she is the first man, first woman on earth. Perhaps Eden was not a garden, but a wilderness. Here then, in the heart of wildness, is the genesis of all legend. It is said the gods told first man to name the animals. All the creatures gathered round. those that crawled, and those that flew, and those that swam in the rivers. And the first animal named was the unicorn, solitary animal, legendary beast. Ever since, it has wandered the far landscape of our awareness. And so we come to the wilderness in search of the unicorn. Or is it the wilderness itself we seek? And we are the solitary animal, the legendary beast, seeking our ancient place among the eagle, the elk, and the bear. So powerful, so real, so terrible is the grizzly that the Shasta and Modoc peoples believed he even frightened God away. Listen to a half-remembered tale once told of this wilderness place. Then the Great Spirit broke off the small end of his walking stick, which he crushed into small bits with his hand. And casting these into the streams, they became fish and swam away to spawn. He broke off more of his walking stick, and casting larger bits of it about, they became animals of many kinds. He made them of many sizes, some weak and some swift of foot, and each a little stronger and a little swifter than the others, so they would have a good chance of survival. And when he came to the large end of his walking stick, the heavy part that he always held in his right hand, he held it thoughtfully for some time, deciding just what sort of creature he would make out of this last sturdy piece. And then he made an animal that would be mightier than any of the others and would rule over the rest. This was the grizzly. And this animal was so strong and so aggressive that the Great Spirit had to hurry away. To the Sioux bear dreamers who passed through this country, Mat Ho, the bear, was patron god of wisdom and medicine. The belief that bear power could be obtained in dreams and is useful in curing sickness and as a help in warfare was common among the peoples of the plains and northern wilderness. The tradition was probably brought from the eastern forests by the Algonquin, for they too were bear dreamers. But here, on the eastern skirts of the Rockies, they encountered the grizzly, a beast stronger and more ferocious than anything their ancestors had known. So great was their awe of the grizzly that bear cults emerged. The secret societies of the Dakotas and Mandans doctored the sick, fought enemies, and conducted their ceremonies in honor of the bear. How curious that the power the bear dreamers obtained from the grizzly was useful in both killing and healing. Only a being of immense power could inspire such a profound contradiction. Here in the wild, free mountains and meadows of Montana, this great wandering recluse endures, a noble monarch ruling his once vanishing domain. The grizzly reminds us that we are no greater than the other creatures of the mountain, the forest, and the river. It reminds us of our vulnerability, teaches us humility, reveals our mortality. For we are as nothing next to the bear, naked, thin, afraid. We are the bear dreamers in desperate need of its power. If we allow the extinction of the grizzly, we lose much more than the great bear. We lose mankind's legendary emissary to the gods, and we just might lose touch with the divinity within ourselves. Then, like the bear, we too will be lost. In the Gothic stillness of the forest, a hunter follows sign of grizzly. A few miles back in an alpine meadow, he had found a place where a family group had grazed on dandelion and huckleberry. And then he had found a bedding site in an alder thicket. And later, a sign of bear digging for biscuit root. The hunter moves cautiously, almost reverently, into a place where few but wild creatures go. He is a visitor here in a land not his own. He is drawn to the bear like a moth to light. Yet it is not so much the bear he seeks, as it is the understanding of the meaning of the bear, knowledge of the grizzly. Its habitat, its diet, factors which influence its breeding. What triggers the bear's long sleep? And what does the bear dream during that winter night? What the bear needs to survive? And what kills the bear when death comes? Yet all this knowledge of the bear and the other wild citizens of the mountain and the forest simply verifies what we have known all along. If the wild, free things of the world are to be saved, the wild, free places must be preserved and maintained. It is a logic as unassailable and as irrefutable as any on earth. If we do not deal with our wild lands intelligently, we risk losing the most precious resource of creation. We lose life. The gene pool of Earth is further threatened. The planet dies a little more, and the universe mourns. There are hunters on the Smith, riding the river down through coiled canyons, high and wild. Beneath the silver surface, trout linger over stones smoothed round by the stream. Yet it is not so much the trout the fishermen seek, as it is an understanding of the meaning of the trout. There was a time when all trout lived in the sea, They would move upstream to spawn in the shallow gravel rivers. Yet there came a time when some of the young remained high in the rivers and never returned to their former home in the sea. How incredibly bold. It is a boldness we share with the trout. For we too left Mother Sea a long time ago. And the trout remind us of the passage. If the river is chained or soiled, more than the trout will be lost. Something old, older than ancient, will be gone forever. Some sense of our own origin and continuity. And the universe mourns. Deep in the mountains, two bull elk battle. It is an ancient and often savage struggle for dominion. How strange, as one watches, that somewhere there could be traffic jams and deodorant commercials and prisons full of thieves. For here is wildness. Here is the earth at its most fundamental level, stripped of ambiguity and pretense and the strange, troubling masquerades of our time. If one would see the world as nature intended it to be, one must one day see the wilderness. For in wildness, there is a return to innocence. And conversely, when wildness diminishes, there is innocence lost.
I will, just for the heck of it.
Winter has come to the high country. Hunters follow the elk. When they pause, the air is filled with a musical absence of sound. Now they move on through the snow like pilgrims in a Russian novel. Yet it is not so much the elk they seek as an understanding of the meaning of the elk. All nature is a balanced struggle of opposing forces, a turning wheel of life and death. In our sophistication, we often feel we are outside nature, looking in. It is one thing, we another. The hunt brings us back again to the earth, reminds us that we are still animals among other animals and subject to nature's laws. The elk reminds us how far we have strayed. If the wild places are lost, we may not be able to find our way home again, and the universe mourns. There are hunters on the Missouri. Canoes cutting the broad reaches like willow through wind. Those in the canoes have seen no others of their species in several days. For this is the last wild stretch of the rolling river. The hunters glide through a silent world. Yet, it is not so much the river itself they seek, but an understanding of the meaning of the river. Here is a celebration of what it means to be free of the crowd. In our literature, we have always thought of being alone as a burden on the spirit. But in our brave new world of people and buildings and cities piled high, to be alone on earth, with the earth, is a thing almost holy. Even if we can't be at a place like this, it's a beautiful thought just to know it exists in the world. A place we can be, if only in the mind. It's no accident that all the great philosophers of the ages journeyed to the wilderness for inspiration and for understanding of the mysteries of the world around them. If we lose these lonely places, this sacred right to be alone with ourselves upon the earth, then we have lost the stillness at our center, and the universe mourns. We are the unicorn, the solitary animal, legendary beast. We are the bare dreamers, yearning for power over the forces that would strike us down. We are hunters, as we have ever been, seeking meaning from the world around us, seeking life, seeking continuity, seeking innocence, seeking that holy quiet center that dwells within. The wilderness, the wild lands, both myth and reality, combine as a parable, offering us a useful truth, offering clear and eloquent clues to the meaning we seek for our lives and time. If the wilderness is lost, that meaning may be lost, and the universe will mourn the last parable.
If we dare to dream, there are endless ways. Legends warm the heart like